Good evening, everyone. Welcome to another edition of the Gray Area here on the Black Man Unfiltered Network, simulcasting on the Sparta HQ Network. I'm Mr. Bennett, joined by my partner, as always,
This is Sparta!
the Ghost of Sparta, aka Peter, aka Panayotis, who I must, before we start the show tonight, I certainly must give a shout out to my guy who is actually entering a new decade. So again, I'm just going to put it on blast right now. Happy 40th birthday to my co-host. Welcome to the club. And as I told you yesterday, I just have a sense that these might be some of your better years or certainly ahead of you. But I just wanted to give you a shout out. His birthday was actually yesterday. And, so certainly, yeah, man. So what's going on? How you feeling? And
I'm feeling better than yesterday because when I woke up for my birthday, I woke up with a cold.
You didn't sound too good at all. Yeah.
No, I wasn't in bed in the last 24 hours, so I'm starting to knock the cold out of my system. So, except that I still feel old as before. Nothing changed.
Yeah, it comes suddenly. It's like you turn the temperature on the water. Like I guess they say how you boil a lobster, you turn the temperature up slowly until it does. So you may feel it like that after some time. But yeah, man, I have my days where I'm not feeling 100% or whatever. Strength is relatively still there. Still can put out in the gym. But if you ask me to go race 100 meters right now, something's getting pulled or something. So I'm not trying to be out there.
You're gonna feel like, ugh.
Oh yeah, and it can happen anytime. It's like those funny car races, like at the racetrack, drag races and stuff. And
yeah.
the car's either going to blow up in the starting block, or it's going to blow up halfway down, or almost near the finish line. So that's kind of how I feel right now when it comes to physical exertion like that. I try to certainly I still train hard, but I still train within limits, so I don't hurt myself in any significant way. But overall, feeling pretty good. But we have an interesting show certainly for you guys tonight. Certainly, if you go back about either early in this month or last month, we did a show on just war theory, and basically that was a set of war principles that was put in place by a Catholic thinker that generally is oftentimes used when war is cited or reasons to go to war. For some people, it's sort of a guide to when to engage in conflicts and whatnot. So, whether nations agree with it or not, it's certainly something that's brought up, especially in this country, when you talk about people who want to justify going to war and what constitutes the reasons for going to war. Again, like I said, his history teaches us that those things aren't necessarily always followed. But before we get into that, certainly I want to do shout out to Mandrell in the building tonight. Appreciate you being here to talk about that. Here we have a guy, Dominican SC Lick
Buddy Anthony. Yeah, we used to work together. Yeah, he's
awesome. So he's giving a big shout out as well. And certainly we also have Time in the building tonight. Appreciate you being here tonight. Missed you on the I know. Aaron Rodgers, again, my season's going down the tank. The fire Mike Tomlin is in full effect. It was pretty loud in the stadium tonight. So, maybe it is time for a new start at this point. But I'm just trying to get through the season and see what happens and whatnot. But again, appreciate
you. You know what? I gotta say one thing. At least the second game of the season.
Yeah, see, they gave you your birthday present. How about that? The Jets considered your boy, and
I realize when I don't watch them, they win. When I do watch them, they lose. So I'm gonna stop watching them and leave it like that.
I try to work by the same superstitions, and what also killed me yesterday, I went to another Rutgers game yesterday, and again, we had the game in hand. We were just like the Iowa game. We had it. We had the momentum and everything went wrong towards the end, and we lost the game to Penn State. That would have been a huge win in the school's history because we oftentimes don't beat Penn State. And, so again, that was a heartbreaking loss. But it's like, again, every time I go to a game, they lose. So it's like, maybe I'm going to stop going.
The Jets. Like every game that I watched so far, they're not playing bad. They're playing actually very good. Towards the end of in end of the fourth quarter, if they slip up somehow and get that one touchdown, they can recover from it. They lose a touchdown. And
absolutely.
I think that's what comes down to it. All right. So before we get into the show, I want to play a video, like I said to you.
Sure thing.
Was going to go into our subject. So I want to warn everybody: this person is a moron, is an idiot. and I just want to hit the person who pre-created her. This is how stupid the person is. I'm gonna show my screen right now. Paul, give me 1 second. All right, there you go.
Mariana Constantine in the build tonight. Again, good to see you here as well. Okay, so let me add this to the stage.
All right.
Guns don't kill people. People kill people.
And I come across this video where a woman tries to debunk the whole guns don't kill people kill people argument. This is part 1.
Guns don't kill people. People kill people. Okay, in that case, bread doesn't make sandwiches. People make sandwiches. Cars don't drive people to work. People drive people to work.
Everything she said proves the argument she's trying to kill. It's like watching someone try to put out a fire by throwing gasoline on it. But they're smiling like they're helping. And then, because the interneted, she came back with part 2. So let's roll the sequel.
The point I was trying to make was, yes, an object needs a human being to operate it in order to carry out an action. However, certain actions cannot be carried out without certain tools. If all the cars in the world disappeared overnight, a lot of people wouldn't be able to get to work tomorrow. And also, for the record, I'm not 100% against guns. My stance is that 1 gun per person and that's it. And you shouldn't have anything more powerful than what the average police officer has in your state. If you live somewhere like Alaska, yeah, you could have a hunting rifle or something more heavy duty. But if you live in the city, you just need a pistol. That's my
lady. Some people own 1 pair of shoes. That doesn't mean everyone else should. But then she drops the greatest unintentional Pro 2A line in TikTok history. You shouldn't have anything more powerful than what the average police officer has in your state. Bam. Do you know what the police in Texas have? Let me spoil it for you a little bit. Full auto rifles, SBR, suppressors, high-capacity magazines, night vision, armored vehicles, flashbangs, ballistic shields, shotguns that breach doors like a Call of Duty cutscene. If we're only allowed to have what cops have, congratulations, you just legalized literally everything the anti-gun organizations, politicians, and the ATF hates for the civilians to have. At this point, I don't know if she's anti-gun or the smartest undercover 2A activist of all time. Hey, don't scroll yet. You need to hear this because what you just watched is exactly why I created the...
All right. When I'm playing that video is 1, show the world how immoral she is. 2nd, when shit hits the fan, I've been getting these arguments for a while. We don't need guns. When shit hits the fan, you wish you had your firearm. That's the point of World War III coming to the subject. So if you remember during World War II, obviously a lot of people were, it's a lot of military fighting and non-military fighting. Can we agree on that, Paul? Because I know you're a big military person.
Yeah, and I have some documentation I can show.
Okay, good.
Well,
so we can agree on that. So by agreeing on that, when a war opens up, it doesn't matter you're civilian or military or police force or whatever you consider yourself, missionary, whatever. You're going to fight towards your country. You're going to fight to protect your family. You're going to fight to protect whatever you believe in, church, whatever. So now you are saying, you can only have 1 firearm. Not going to be enough to fight a war. That's one thing about us as United States Americans. When people come and fight with us, we have more guns than they do usually. So that's why you don't really want to come knocking on our door.
Well, I don't know. One, I don't know if that's necessarily accurate. And again, we've had a show. Again, you guys can go back and watch. We had a show on guns, and we debated that topic. The reality is, again, we really haven't had too many invaders, right? I mean, Pearl Harbor was certainly unplanned, and that certainly nothing could have prepared you for that, no matter how many guns that you had. And but then we also had submarines 20 miles off the coast of New York from the Germans. The Germans were here. Why they didn't pull the trigger, I don't know, but certainly they did get to the eastern shoreline. So again, if you want to talk about a land invasion where people are coming, jumping out of helicopters and paratrooping in and whatever, that might be a different story. But especially in today's conflict, guns is really not going to help you. Certainly in a world war situation, when the weapons of war have increased dramatically in firepower, and obviously we got the ultimate big joker cards out there with the nuclear options. So again, I don't know to what extent it's going to help you in that particular situation. I get the point about, again, being armed, and if that certainly happens, but in these times, one, we never had a history of it. So we're not war torn like Russians, Ukrainians, Germans. I mean, we've had countries that this was like a living for those guys. We've never really had that kind of incursion. The only time that we used real severe weapons within the country was the Civil War. And so, and you saw the sort of the death toll that happened there. So listen, I don't agree with everything she's saying. I certainly would like to see some limitations on just the ridiculous amount of guns that people are allowed to have. But certainly I wouldn't take it down to like a one gun policy or anything like that. But I think it's worthy of a discussion. And again, we have more guns in this country than people. And I think that's, and when we see all these casualties daily from it, I think that's a discussion worth having.
So two things. One, I think I am getting Mandro walled up on the comments already. If you see it,
yeah. Well, see, he always comes the wrong time. We say this all the time. Let's have it. We put out the call-in show every month. You were getting on this last month for having the Just War show. We have our call in. We don't see you, so it's like
I think next week are due for our call in. So let's make sure we remind Mandrell, because I know he's getting old with us up there in age too. So remind him to come in. But the only closest thing I can see happening to to our country is only kind of invasion I see. Again, I'm no expert. I'm no military, anything like. I just
he's asking a question. We're not coming at this as subject matter experts. No show that we ever do we ever claim that we're subject matter experts. We're two friends. We're two people on a show having a conversation, just like people have in the barbershop, in the coffee house, on the phone or whatever. We're just having at the bar. We're just having a respectful conversation. So again, we're not trying to educate people. And if anything, we're trying to educate people on how to have a proper conversation. But we agree that we're not experts on this, but we see the world as we see it, and we come to it, for our own reasons. And so, yeah, I mean, people who are experts in it, that would, if we want to have a show like that, we can certainly plan for that. And certainly someone like you, we can certainly invite you on to be a part of it. But we certainly want people on the show that may have opposing views to, who are also experts in the field. So again, a show like that takes a lot to put together, and certainly we would want an equal playing field in terms of the people that we want on. We don't want just one person to dominate the conversation. So that's really the genesis of anything that we've done on this. But again, that's something we haven't done yet. But again, that takes a lot of planning. If you know guys who would certainly could give an opposing view to yours, certainly we can have a conversation. You know how to reach me, so we can have that conversation as well.
Let me tell you, highlight the last comment he just came in with. So the part of the issue is, Mandro, is you might say yes, you're going to show up. I'm not saying you. I'm just using you as an example, of course. You say I will do the show, but a lot of times, a lot of people say we'll do the show, literally flake on us at the last minute, and we're hanging with our nuts in our hands. And I don't like my nuts in my hands personally.
Some people may disagree with you, but that's another story.
You've reached your limit on talking.
I'm just saying.
Shut the fuck up.
I'm just saying.
Listen, but, I love Big Boss, not that big.
Yeah, but he is true. We've had shows. For certain reasons, people they cite security reasons or whatever, or they just flake out on us. So again, we've had that. We pitch that ideas like that to have certainly people who can speak on it or whatnot. But one reason or whatever, they always tend to flake out. So, but yeah. So again, we're like I said, this is a conversation, okay, not a exposition. If you learn something, great, But like my thing has always been supermarket approach. Take what you can get. I'm more of a stat guy. I like facts and figures, in the conversation. I think it helps to frame it. But I totally 100% agree that I am no SME on this, and you got people who get paid to do this for a living. And so
I do. I'm trying to word this correctly. I'm not a fan of war, but I do find it fascinating of a historical fact version of it. With World War I, Vietnam, all those wars, I found it very fascinating how they started and how they ended. Let's
get into that a little bit. Let's talk about.
Before we get into it, I want to mention one thing we were saying before. The only way I see this country getting invaded in any shape, way, or form, I don't think this will be air. I think it's going to be through the ocean with Alaska and Russia. If it freezes, they can literally walk across and come us knowing about it. And that's the only time I will think, yeah, you better have more guns than us because we're coming with vengeance. But we caught off guard. My last statement, I'll give you the floor after that. Now, do I think we're heading to World War III or are already in World War III? I'm in a 50-50 debate on that because I don't know if we're in it because the wars are bringing it right and left. But are we heading towards that? I want to say yes. We're heading towards another global war. Where's yours?
Gotcha. Just kind of give some perspective, again, leading up to certainly major conflicts, certainly in the 20th century. Just wanted to always give some insights on this stats that I found. So if you talk about, World War I and just the number of casualties and statistics there in terms of, the casualties, who got hit the most. I mean, the Russians got really butchered in the certainly in the First World War. U.S. had fewest because again, we seldom ever been invaded by anyone. Pearl Harbor is probably the only thing that you can. And then I guess if you want to consider 9/11, I wouldn't call that an invasion. That was a terrorist attack. But certainly, compared to a lot of these other countries who like the whole 20th century seemed like it was defined by war on their borders and in their towns, and these places had to go rebuilt. If you go to a lot of these older European countries or whatnot, they got war memorials all over the place, or places that still bear the scars of wartime conflict. If I go to the next one here, so you got again casualties overall. Okay, again World War I, 1914 to 1918. Again, you see again just number of deaths. Let me go back one. I think I skipped one. Did I? Okay. Oh yeah. So again, Italy, 600,000, France, 1.3 million, Russia, 1.7 million dead and wounded. I mean, so the casualty totals are just really high, as a result of that. And even in our country, again, 53,000 dead, 204,000 wounded. It's almost as many as that was in Vietnam. Then if you look at, where I want to go here, so I want to kind of define what a world war is. Because obviously you have different conflicts that are going on around the world that with different countries or whatnot, but that doesn't necessarily classify a world war. So I looked in AI and I asked, how do you generally define one? And I think the main takeaway is that it's got to be with the big hitters. So when Russia invaded Afghanistan, that's not a world war. Or when we, went into the Persian wars and whatnot, that wouldn't be classified as a world war. So when you get these big guys, if Russia and United States go to war, or we're back in the day where Germany was a world power, if they get into it, you're talking about major military arsenals going head to head with each other, with the ability to inflict major damage on the other. Then I think that's really there. So again, involvement of major powers. So it just can't be a big power going in on a little ones. Like the Russia-Ukraine war is not a world war, even though it's having impact on certainly on Europe and even here in the U.S., where involving resources, what's going on in Israel, Palestine, or the Middle East. Those are certainly conflicts. What's going on in Africa right now with all the the internal fighting, the civil wars within nations and whatnot. Again, unless you get two major powers who really go head to head, you really can't call that a world war. Global scope. Crossing multiple countries. So again, World War II, for example, was fought in the Asia Pacific and Europe, Africa, the Pacific. Lots of theaters of war all going on around the same time. Widespread impact, and again, total war mobilization. I mean, at one point, I think when I showed doing the Just War slide deck, we invested something like 30% of our GDP went into the war effort. It was the highest concentration of money that went into a war effort versus any other conflict that we had in this country. Vietnam, World War I, you throw all that together, it wasn't near what World War II was in terms of the monies that we had to invest to build up our military and in order to fight that war.
I'm not mistaken, Paul, World War II was the most deadliest war that humanity have ever seen.
Correct. So we're coming up on that. So again, we got the Central Powers. Again, Austria-Hungary, 7 million casualties. Germany, 7 million casualties. So these were the guys I guess we were fighting, or this sort of block. So again, 15 million plus casualties. You add that to, go back a couple, you add that to the 22 million casualties from, I guess, the Allied powers, or however they were called at that time. That's over 35 million casualties total, and about 20 million deaths. And that's from World War One. When you get to World War II, you start to see really the casualty rate went up. So again, Soviet Union lost 24 million people, casualties, and both military and civilians. China, 20 million. And a lot of that had to do with Japan. Really did a number on China during that time. The Grape of Nanking, and just a lot of casualties there. 8.5 million Germans died, 5.6 million Polish, and you just see down the line Japan, 3.1 million. And we know about, certainly the more famous incidences of, with the atomic bombs, with the bombing, the bombing raids of Japan. So a lot of that's Philippines, but we don't talk about a whole lot. And it's interesting, French Indochina and Philippines, because that was really the birth and the aftermath of that really led to Vietnam. All right, so everything started in Japan. In fact, it's interesting because the guy Ho Chi Minh, he was actually one of the he was helping us. He helped the Allies versus the Japanese in Japan. And after the war, he was promised that Vietnam would be basically liberated from France. Well, France reneged on the deal, and 10 years later, you get the Vietnam War. And for historians, again, Vietnam started in 1955. Not this, people know it from the 60s and the 70s, but it was 1955 when that really broke out. U.S. involvement got increased, certainly during the LBJ, Lyndon Johnson years. But all that groundwork for what happened after World War II, it started French Indochina and the Philippines. Again, so so a lot of these things, we like to say World War II, that was our greatest victory, but again, there was some other things that sort of came with that. Here's again some just a breakdown of casualties in general from World War II. So the different countries that had it. Okay, 407,000 U.S. casualties during that time, and casualties is not always deaths. It's also it's injuries as well as deaths. But again, you could just see the scale here. A lot of countries suffered. I only went down to countries where it had like 1,000 or more. But I mean, Greece had casualties.
If I remember correctly, hang on, I got my notes right here.
Yeah, Greece, 825,000 casualties from World War II. So I mean, that was a that was a huge part of their population as well. So again, everybody really suffered with their bodies, whether it be again military or a civilian. So it was a world war in every sense. You're talking on, as if you add everything up, it's about 70 to 80 million people who died during World War II. So, and it was the largest event, certainly over a 6-year period, 1939 to 1945, the greatest wipeout of human life, I think, in human history. Famines and all other things aside, I don't think it even added up to that. So really some vicious numbers. But even if you go into the wars that came after. So again, the Korean War, which again, we fought to a standstill, okay, at the 38th or 39th parallel. Again, when you start adding up all of the casualties, both civilian as well as military, again, we lost 36,568 soldiers in Korea, as well as the 103,000 wounded. Again, but where the theater was waged, again, a lot of people, millions of people still lost their lives during Korea, and we're still no better off than where we were 70 years ago. Vietnam War. Okay, so again, if you just start adding in the civilian deaths from that conflict, all because a promise was broken, France reneged, and then because we were allied with France, well, we got to help France, so they drug us into it. And certainly the Chinese were certainly backing the North Vietnamese, and we're not even talking about this number here. We're not even talking about other countries that were affected, like Cambodia and Laos. The bombing campaigns that Nixon waged in Cambodia and Laos during that time, the Khmer Rouge that came after that did lead to a lot of people. But even ourselves, we lost 58,000 soldiers in Vietnam.
So that is one word to this day. I'm confused why the fuck we were there.
I just told you. We got pulled into a situation because the French reneged on a deal. They were supposed to allow, because after World War II, a lot of countries started, because of either their assistance to the Allied powers in war, they asked for their independence. That independence was granted. Like I said, the guy from Vietnam, he was an ally.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting. Just like Osama bin Laden, he was an ally at one point, right? So it's just amazing how a lot of times we get into these deals, we strike deals with people, and then that stuff comes back to bite us in the butt later on. But he was on our side. France reneged. They got into a war with Vietnam, which they lost. France lost. And then they came to the big brother, U.S., and said, hey, we need your help in this situation because they're trying to break free and we need to keep our empire together. And so we didn't want them to leave. So U.S., because you're part of NATO, you got to help us. And especially in that time, you talk about the Cold War, and this was obviously the biggest campaign of the Cold War. People say that we weren't officially at war with China or Russia during the Cold War, but certainly conflicts like this, there were casualties. There were these proxy wars that were fought during that time, and you certainly had people who paid the price for this, and just for just wanting to be independent, just like everybody else. And you see here the casualties that came from that.
Most people say is most times it was because they want to stop spreading communists over there. That's the reason why we went to war originally.
Well, guess what? Again, that was off. If France would have let them go, you probably could have had a friend and an ally there. But the communists were like, look, they won't let you go, or we'll help you get released. You know what I'm saying? So again, when you renege on deals, then other people are going to come calling, which is one of the reasons why I say, even just in a geopolitical sense, U.S. better get their act together, because China is starting to gain influence in a lot of countries, especially in Africa. And if U.S. doesn't want to treat Africa right, China is saying, look, we'll do business with you. So what would you rather have? So, you basically, by you not treating people right, other powers are going to come in, and they may want to have a say in what's going on. And so don't be surprised when other countries, the fight that you say you want to stop the spread of communism or whatever, but how you treating your neighbors and how you treat these countries that you want to have alliances with, that also matters if you don't want those kind of relationships to forge and happen. Here, the Russian-Ukraine war, just to kind of give some perspective. So again, since 18 months, 500,000, the death toll on both sides have been over 500,000. Russia's military casualties are over 300,000, and 120,000 deaths, 170 to 108,000 injuries, and the Ukrainian number is anywhere between 70 and 100,000, 120,000 wounded. So again, war costs. And just the more I go on, here is from the Middle Eastern wars over the years. So again, we got hit on 9/11, we lost 3,000 people, right? But again, these conflicts that have taken place over the years, millions of people overall have been impacted. You know what I mean? So again, there's a price to pay for all of these, for all these incursions. And then this is the last thing I want to show, and then we can get back to the conversation, since we're talking about a World War III possibility. So here you had an AI chat bot that basically gave estimates. So as I said earlier, World War II, 70 to 85 million people. A no nuke World War III could easily lead to 50 to 100 million deaths if you keep the nuclear weapons out of it. But then you got to ask yourself, and again, given that world wars are generally fought with the big boys, most of the big boys have nuclear weapons. China has them, India has them, Russia has them, US has them, France has them, UK has them, right? So if those guys get into conflict, then and it's interesting because Ukraine doesn't have them. But why they don't have them is because we told them if you take away if you take away your nukes, then we'll basically protect you. And you see where they're at now. So they had them at one point. But again, that's us getting in other people's business. And now they're dealing with this conflict with the they get into this conflict with the Russians. But assuming nukes are used, the highlights that I have at the bottom, it could be anywhere to 100 million and 1 billion people. And you're talking about even in a certain theater, if it's a U.S., China, or Pacific situation, that's easily 100 million to 1 billion people who are deleted if that happens. And then if it goes to like a full scale with 13,000 warheads in the world, easily 4 to 6 billion deaths like instantly. But then the latter part, you're talking about another 3 billion that will perish during the nuclear winter, and the global temperatures go down, vegetation dies, animal life dies. You're really talking about the end of humanity at this point. So again, so that's a future which we've seen. And again, I'm an 80s kid, so I grew up watching War Games. If you remember the movie War Games, if you remember Red Dawn, where US was in fact invaded in Red Dawn, and they made allusions to China getting nuked and all, so just global catastrophes going on. And I think there was another, I think it was like an ABC movie, I think it was called The Day After, that also played in the 80s.
I watched the original Red Dawn, and I watched the remake. The remake makes a little more sense to me personally because technology has evolved ever since the first movie came up.
Yeah.
One thing I know, I've been talking to a lot of people who are active members and non-active members of the service, vets and non-vets, and people who are just like me and you. One thing is always the same agreement. They don't think this is, if it's going to be a World War III, they don't think it's going to be like a normal war like we saw World War I and World War II. I think it'd be more like pushing a button kind of war, sending droids, sending nukes, sending bombs. I think it'd be that kind of war versus the wars we have seen in the past. Does that make sense to you or no?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. Just want to address, I know I did a lot there, so we got a few chats that came in. We appreciate some of the folks coming in. So we have Melody9244. Again, what would you say are the most powerful nations? I think I named them. I think clearly if you have nuclear weapons, you're certainly, whether or not even like in North Korea, from what I understand, their population isn't treated very well, but they definitely invest in the military. I would consider them anybody who's got that kind of juice. So like I said, the countries I mentioned, England, France, Russia, India, China, I would certainly put those guys in the mix. Japan, I wouldn't put there, even back in the day when they were a financial power, because again, we said as a policy, no nuclear weapons in Japan. So we kind of took that off the table. And so US was only 2.9%. Yeah, we spent like 2 million troops. And we lost, as far as casualties in general, it was like 300,000. So it was definitely, we didn't have too many. But again, we were, we weren't invaded with the exception of Pearl Harbor. But even then, you only talk about 3,000 people who died in Pearl Harbor. And so we appreciate your service, being a Desert Storm veteran. Okay, I'm not going to, think I'm going to skip that comment. We got the coach in the building tonight. Good to see you, sir. Hope you're doing well. If World War III happened to get everyone from grooming to my son and the Benson daughters who's prepared. Yeah, I mean
nobody's prepared really, if you really think about it.
Yeah. And yes, that movie, The Day After, certainly was a chilling, especially at the time. Because again, I mean, I still went to school. We would do drills, right? Like getting under the tables and whatnot. You had on every school building had like one of those radiations, those black and yellow radiation signs up. And we had to kind of do these drills and whatnot, get under the table and all that. So again, it was a constant, especially during the Reagan years. It was a constant part of our daily existence. We were just inundated with it. And again, even the popular culture with the video games and the movies and whatnot, it was just always around that, this is the sort of thing that eventually could happen to us. So, so certainly,
only thing with that is going under the table and covering your head is not going to save you from a nuclear blast.
Right.
And that was more ridiculous than anything, I think.
Right.
So, hey, what do I know? I'm just a dumb civilian.
Yeah, like I said, we're not experts.
I'm an old 40-year-old civilian.
40 years, like I said, welcome to the club. But yeah, armies that march, those goose eggs should be worrisome on general principle. Well, it's interesting because I remember watching. We talk about just how wars were fought back in the day. I mean, a lot of that stuff didn't make sense. Like I remember watching Glory, and the last battle in Glory, they were trying to take this fort. Mm-hmm. And they were marching in this certain manner up to the fort. The guys could see them coming. They're launching cannon fire at them. And they're still in formation. You got guys getting clipped off. And they start trotting until they get to a certain point, and then they say charge. But they lost all these guys before they got there because there was this formal way with which you fought wars with, And so it's just interesting because when you got to Vietnam, like, all these guys had this way of how war should be fought, but nobody even heard of guerrilla warfare.
No, that was
new back then. And to your point earlier about, the gun situation, If you're going to be going into cities and towns and just areas where people live, when people are armed, the one thing that Vietnam taught is that, if you have a population that is armed or that they knows the terrain better than you do, you're at a disadvantage no matter how many weapons that you have. I mean, we napalmed the place, cover to cover, and we still couldn't get a whole lot of traction, despite the millions of people who were lost in that war. Vietnamese people, we still basically had to take the L on that one. You know what I mean? So it's definitely something that certainly a nation that is well armed would certainly have an advantage over an invading force. And I would certainly agree that U.S. would be bad. So Vietnam was bad because of nerve gas and chemical agents, toxic mind and body. Yeah, especially how many vets came home with cancer or died from that stuff when we was there. So it's certainly an issue. I got our pain in the building. If World War III started, the world would be in deep and dystopian times, or forget even that, it could just be over. You know what I mean? If everything that they talk about, if you drop thousands of nuclear weapons, it would cloud the atmosphere, sunlight getting through, the fallout, the nuclear winter and whatnot, end of vegetation, end of everything. It'd be like the dinosaurs. You might have a few people who may be able to escape. Obviously, the important people, they're going to have their places where they go and whatnot. I'm sure they have contingency plans if that happens. But as far as humanity would basically be starting over, and it would take thousands of years if there's an appreciable surviving trace of humanity. It would take us probably thousands of years to climb out of that in order to rebuild, because the whole infrastructure that's been built over hundreds of years will be essentially wiped out. So the machines, the technology and whatnot, everything would pretty much be gone. And so, so that kind of scenario is certainly not good. It's certainly not good for anyone. So we don't get tornadoes up here, so we didn't have those. But definitely, I said that the nuclear drills, in the 80s, certainly when I was in grammar school and whatnot, we definitely we certainly did our share of those things. But talk about then. So I just want to kind of give how conventional wars and the casualties and how things have led up to where we are now. All right. But like I said, if you're talking about a world war, we kind of already know who the big players are going to be. Right. And if that pops off, then what's going to be the casualty? Or unless you're saying, is the world war, if we're already in one, which I think was one of your beliefs, that we might be already in World War already, then are we fighting it differently? Like the Cold War was obviously fought differently from the wars of World War II and prior, at least for the most part, with the exception of those proxy wars, Vietnam being the biggest of them. But how would you, if you do believe that we might be at war now, that how do you why do you believe that we might be able to be that we may be able to be at war now?
Because everything's going on lately. Look at what happened a couple of days ago. We had one soldier dying, doing absolutely nothing, just guarding. People are attacking us right and left. People are attacking, wars are breaking out. People are starting, like we just bombed what I can't remember what country it was a few months ago. That's what usually
Venezuela.
Yeah.
I think it was Venezuela. Well, yeah, some
No,
boats.
No, it was a different country. They were about their disarm their nuclear warheads. That's what President Trump nuked them. I mean, bombed them.
You talk. Well, he didn't nuke them, but
no, I bombed them. I missed,spoke. My bad.
It might have been I think it was one of the Middle Eastern countries. I think it was Iran or something like that. Yeah, I mean they.
I think it was Iran actually.
Yeah.
But
Iran didn't have any. I mean, they might have had some nuclear facilities that they were in the process, but they didn't have any official weapons yet. So again, I guess he's trying to reduce their capacity to produce them. I think that's the their.
Again, you can't really say they had them or don't have them because you don't know. Me and you, as the way we'll never know those answers. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So like, let's say for argument's sake, for our conversation, they did have nukes ready to be launched if they had needed to, for argument's sake. So this whole WMDs are getting to a point like, okay, we got to stop them before they come to us. So that's where usually it starts, one after the other and after the other after the other. So why
preemption hasn't always been necessarily the best course of action when it comes to the fact you say you want to stop something, but again, more times than not, we create more problems. Like if you look at everything, like Iran, we had a lot to do with that because we backed through our government, through CIA, through all these sources. We get involved in these in the affairs of other nations. The people said bump the Shah. They had that revolution in '79. And it was over. But the Shah of Iran, that whole family, as corrupt as it was, we backed all that. So anytime U.S. has been involved in nation building, so I already mentioned 3 tonight. I mentioned Ho Chi Minh in Vietnam. I mentioned Osama bin Laden, who was he was on our side at one point in time, and I just mentioned now with the Shah of Iran, right? We get involved in these conflicts and stuff, and in some ways, I'm almost like a libertarian when it comes to this stuff. But I think interventionism has in one way or another, 10 years, 20 years down the line, comes back to bite us in some form or fashion. So again, the idea of preemption, thinking that you want to stop something before it happens, history has told us that there's a lot of unintended consequences when we do such things. So I don't know how effective it's going to be when you think that you did something. Again, if assuming our government did that, and again, if there's nothing, if anything, if you strengthened the resolve of the people to go forward with their activities, you don't know if they took them out or not. So but again, the way we hype up everything, we don't know what's going on over there.
Yeah. So I'll give you another example. With the Middle Eastern mostly. So first we had the Taliban that we somehow became a government politicians thing. Don't ask. I don't know how that happened. I just don't. Then you have ISIS that we know that's a no-fly zone. Obviously, now they just announced recently the Brotherhood of Middle Eastern or some shit like that is called another terrorist group. Now that's going to be another group we have to watch our backs out. So it's just the domino effects I'm being seen, and I don't want to make this into a religion conversation, but I do think the next war is going to be more of a religion war versus just a global war too. But everything's going on because a lot of this stuff is happening in the Middle East that happens lately. And then it drags us into it.
Right. But still, if you talk about World War III, though, it's not going to really involve a lot of religion at all. Because again,
I agree.
So again, Russia and China, they're not necessarily religious nations, even though Putin apparently is a Russian Orthodox. But I don't think he's necessarily governed by that. And again, I'm not saying that you're always going to have conflicts. Like I said, even a war in the Middle East can have certainly implications on everybody. Your gas prices or whatnot. Every time there's a hiccup over there, gas prices go up, and we always see what the impacts of that are. It certainly can have an effect on economies when there's a hiccup over there. So I'm not saying that won't, but I still wouldn't put those conflicts that you're talking about up to a level of a world war, unless I would say the big three: U.S., China, Russia, and even by proxy, U.S. I'm talking England and France. Those are really the players who, if we're gonna throw hands, we talking about that. So it'd be a combination of U.S., France, and Russia U.S., France, and England versus, and throw Germany in there versus those other powers: Russia, China, North Korea.
I would be worried more about Russia and China, because they're two are like BFFs, like for little fuck buddies, because they will back each other at any point, any shape, form. They don't care. If they're wrong or right, that's a whole different story. That they will back each other out. Like, if something ever happens between us and Russia, we got to worry about China coming after us.
Well, again, in terms of our foreign policy, again, I'm not trying to get overly political here, but
of course,
in terms, again, NATO/US policy versus the BRICS policy. BRICS: Russia, China, India, and I forget what the other B is there, but again, that's the competing interest. Like, you want to talk about, I would say this: I think the Cold War is still going on. I don't think, people think the Cold War ended in '89.
It did end
but I don't think it ended, and I think it's probably even hotter now that it's been. But now it's the NATO alliance basically versus the BRICS.
So what I can't
but yeah.
I'm sorry to cut you off, Paul, but what I can't say names, because I can't rat the person out. During 9/11, when all that shit was going down, again, this is it's actually out now too. So when we were don't know what's happening, planes are falling out of the sky, Russia actually called us. And when they picked up the phone, like, "You guys okay over there? Like, we're seeing a lot of activities," because they're about to, fire jets. They didn't know what's going on. They think we're getting attacked. And that's the moment when they hanged up the phone. They said, "We just think the Cold War's finally ended during 9/11." But I started another war on top of that. But I think the Cold War, we also are at, like, how you have World War I and World War II? I think we're at Cold War Part 2 now. It reunited.
Yeah, recently. I would say that's probably more accurate. Like I said, a World War III, I mean, if you have rational people in the room, you can say, well, this can't happen. I mean, I think that, our opinion.
You think he's rational?
I'm just saying. I mean, if our opinion or ask a question, so we agree World War III by definition will be nuclear. I think certainly nuclear would be part of the strategy.
Nuclear, AI, and drones, I think.
Yeah. Cyber, chemical.
Yes.
I mean,
definitely cyber.
I mean, you got a lot of again, more chess pieces on the board.
So I know you're not a gamer, but this one makes a lot of sense a little bit. Okay, so
and before you go, Brazil was the other one. So again, BRICS is Brazil, Russia, India, and China, right? And they also looking to expand to South Africa, Egypt, Ethiopia, Iran, and the UAE. All right. So again, if really where they're competing at is like almost there's like an economic war, or for a lot of these nations, who do you garner favor with? And especially at the center of all that's going to be Africa. Who is Africa really going to play with? Are they going to mess with NATO and their side, or are they going to go with BRICS? And I think that is really going to also determine a lot of what happens in the future, depending on who gets the influence. And
why do you think Africa more than anybody?
Because again, Africa I think has always been in place, certainly in the last 70, 80 years, because of the resources there. Everything that we have comes from Africa. Cell phones, computers, the cobalt, all those things, the car batteries for electric cars, all that stuff comes out of Africa. And so who's going to have influence? Who's Nigeria going to deal with? Who's Ghana and all these countries? Who they're going to deal with? If they think the U.S. is not acting in their best interest, I mean, think about it. I mean, I haven't heard anything in probably 20 years. I mean, the last president who had any kind of interaction with Africa was Bush, and he was just basically trying to do like humanitarian stuff, like through the AIDS crisis and things like that. He was trying to, kind of
which Bush we're talking about? Which Bush?
George W. The second Bush.
Second
Bush. So he was, he was doing that. But since then, I didn't hear anything out of Obama or Trump. I mean, and we've heard his comments on Africa. Again, I'm not gonna dive too much there, but it seems like we're not necessarily treating them right. And if BRICS gets an influence, then that could be a problem.
Here's my only issue. I keep hearing all the time from everybody I talk to. A lot of research comes from Africa into the States. Yeah, if that's a true facts, or they censor all that. I'm not saying it's false. Why are they struggling so much still just to have ends meet in their country? So I have a hard time understanding they're pushing so much stuff out of the country. Batteries, cell phones, computers, all this stuff. They're still struggling. Like, I don't get it.
Again, how that's a whole nother discussion.
I know.
But that goes back to the 80s. I mean, at one time, like in the 80s, I remember being in college, and Nigeria was like in a position to really be arguably the most powerful nation in Africa. They had a ton of oil, lots of resources and whatnot. But again, it's also tribal. So there's a lot of internal conflicts. There's, who wants to be on top or whatever. There's a lot of social stuff. I mean, we talk to David all the time, and he brings.
He's
a lot
probably screaming at the screen right now.
He talks about it. So I think and again, you have the civil wars that are going on, but again, you still have to ask yourself again, how are these things being fomented? Because again, countries like the U.S. and these superpower nations have a way of getting involved in local economies to stir things up. And while they're getting stirred up, they're kind of taking the resources on the back end, right? So again, keep Africa warring, keep Africa divided, and we'll get our resources from you, and you guys have your little tribal wars or whatever, and we'll be out. You know what I mean? So again, that's always been an issue. So some of it's internal to the people. And until they start acting in their own best interest and be like, look at who we're dealing with on the left and on the right, and who's going to have our best interest versus this internal stuff that's crippled the nation. These nations, a lot of these nations, despite having all these resources, a lot of these places are third world, and so so again, that's a problem with the how people view themselves. Certainly in the country, and how they're looking just overall at the world around them. And if they really understood their history, especially how they've been treated. Now, again, this is a fact that sometimes isn't necessarily told. Now, we all know about what happened in Nazi Germany with the concentration camps and whatnot, and the death toll there. I won't mention it here. But there was as equal a death toll in Africa under Portugal King Leopold. And what he did in Africa to the people there, millions of people who were deleted at his hands there in Africa. And yet, even with all of that, no, I'm not seeing that kind of. Even though in the 60s you had a lot of African states declaring independence, I didn't necessarily see a lot of those countries coming together for their own interests. So. Lots of conflicts.
No, at one point, please correct I'm wrong. I think it was in Africa under the British Crown at one point.
No, it's split up. You had Britain, you had France, you had Portugal. All the major European countries had basically a piece of Africa. The only really American, it was Belgium. Thank you for clearing that, and shout out to I got Anton in the chat tonight. Yes, the Prince of Belgium. Millions of Africans were deleted in that time. So, but it was split up like a pot. The only American colony, if you will, have in Africa is Liberia. That's like the only one. And I never hear us having any kind of relationship with them of any substance. I never seen it really featured. Sure. I never saw Obama when he was president. I never saw him go over there. And not saying he didn't, but I never heard of it, or they didn't make a big deal of it. So again, I mean, why aren't we having more interest there, knowing that a lot of the future is going to be there? I have no idea. If anything, it's like we're kind of adopting almost an isolationist type of mindset than a global one. But even more egregious to me is even in our own hemisphere. Like when I went to Jamaica a couple years ago, I was stunned because when I was there, a lot of the infrastructure and developments there, you know who built it? China, Korea. I'm like, wait a minute. This is, you got all these Americans, you got all these people who travel there for vacation and tourism and whatnot. Why doesn't the U.S. have a stronger alliance with the Caribbean? It just kind of blew my mind that in your own, you already got one problem with Cuba in your hemisphere already. And that almost led to the end of everything in 1962 with the Cuban Missile Crisis. That was the last time we were at the brink of World War III. Mm-hmm. Because if that popped off,
came very close,
nobody would be here. And it's interesting because the deadline was October 27th, which is my birthday. So again, I wouldn't be here if that popped off. But again, they had dozens of medium range. They could have killed millions of Americans. The whole East Coast could have got taken out. And certainly, so again, Kennedy with the blockade and all that, very tense bit of history, which reminds me, one of my favorite Cold War movies is 13 Days. If you haven't watched it, that should definitely go on the list of Cold War movies. 13 Days is one of the best, movies based on real events. Really appreciated that film. But yeah, a lot went there. But again, we're not even controlling our own hemisphere or the stuff that's going on in our hemisphere. Again, ask, how have we treated even South America, right? CIA did a lot of damage in South America. What happened in the 80s with Ronald Reagan with the with Panama and those Sandinistas and all that. I mean, just creating conflicts all over the place. So we haven't even been the best of neighbors in our own hemisphere. Now, how do you think we're going to necessarily approach Africa when it comes to that? And BRICS is constantly gaining influence in the continent and gaining favor with those people. So I think the Cold War is definitely on. No question about it. Between those two major groups, whether or not it gets to the nukes or not, I just think, if you get one popping off, I just don't see how we come back from that. I think it's almost like literally like a chain reaction.
That's why we haven't fired. Nobody has fired one, because everybody keeps saying, if we fire one, can we ever return from that? The answer is no. Once you fire one, that's his return. It's a game. I want to bring up attention from 1 minute here. I know you're not a big gamer, but you heard of Call of Duty, right?
Yeah.
Okay, Black Ops 2, one of the best games, in the franchise, they say, whatever. But it's a part of that game that it very fascinated me because it made sense. The game was in a future, years later. Like, actually, this is the year the game was supposed to play, where we had these droids, all this stuff. But it's more building more in the future. Mm-hmm. But it's a part of that guy named Woods. He said something there that made a lot of sense. So we have AI, all this stuff, right? What happened was the enemy got the keys to our systems. Think about it for a minute. Mm-hmm. Now we lost control over our tech. Now they have the keys, so they can turn our weapons against us. Mm-hmm. Think how bad that can be for a minute here.
Well, it's kind of already happened, right? I mean, that's basically what cyber attacks are for, right? I mean, how many of those are taking place? Utility grids, power grids being down, and whatnot. So again, are we even utilizing? Like, I don't even know if we have the right people in positions to really work with that. I mean, why aren't we working? Are we working with the Microsofts and the Intels and just the smartest minds to really make sure that we got the best people? Get some of these hackers who are going around hacking. We should be hiring them. I mean, get
Actually,
really
last time
smart
I checked,
people.
again, I might be wrong on this, but last time I checked, I think the FBI and CIA actually do hire them if they
They
give them
should.
work for us or go to jail.
They
I think the brainer.
something, but I'm just saying. But you have some really smart people, and again, and because we're going to away from paper into this electronic digital age, yeah. If someone hacks into these major,
away from the paper.
what's that? Yeah, I'm saying, but I'm just saying the transition from paper to digital. How vulnerable are we with a lot of stuff? That's why I think I was watching a documentary not too long ago that a lot of our nuclear sites, a lot of them are still kind of old school, right? Like you still need a key, you still need it's like analog to an extent because they don't want to risk having those systems on a purely digital platform that you want manual intervention and controls over that stuff, and stuff can't be taken out with EMP attacks and things of that nature as well. So again, a lot of our nuclear arsenal is still on that old school 60s, 70s tech as a safety measure, so they can't get hacked. That'd really be something. If someone hacks on that, and you just like I said, war games, right? Somebody can get in there and get those codes and just launch. I mean, that's a problem. That's a problem.
Remember what we talked about a couple weeks ago on my show on Hangout, where we're talking about White House Down versus Olympus Has Fallen. If you remember, in a White House Down, they weren't going after the presidency; they were going after the nukes. So they were getting the codes. That's what they cared about most of anything.
Yeah.
And the nuclear football or whatever it's called. So that's where they were going after mostly. So if you get those, there's some analog, but how many analog are there versus how many digital?
Yeah,
most of the nukes that from my understanding, they're in the submarines. So, and most of them digital now these days. And the very few analog we have, even when EMP strikes it's still going down because it hits the electrical magnetic fields. So even analog is going to kill the circuit power to it, no matter what.
Right.
So it's going down one way or the other.
Right. Let me ask you I guess a philosophical question. This was something, again, when I was in school, time after time we were dealt with this question. If a nuclear war if World War III broke out, would you rather be killed in the blast, or would you want to survive the explosion? Because again, back in the day, people don't understand. People used to buy bomb shelters was a thing. Like people sold
them so these days.
People. Well, it might be a new business. It might be a what do you call it? An upstart or an uptick in
doomsday preparer or doomsday survivor.
Right, but would you even want to do that? Because I know in the 50s and 60s, I remember if you look at some of these old magazines like Popular Mechanics and whatnot, $5,000 or whatever, they'll bill you one. They showed it had the layouts. You got water for 6 months and food rations and beds. They had bunk beds, and it was like underground, and all of these things that people were buying in the event of a nuclear aftermath. And that was always the question, talking about, would you want that? Would you even invest? Why would you? If knowing what could possibly happen, that let's say if you down there and you're in a hole for 3 or 4 months, would you even want to come out? What would you even see when you came out? Would it be too much? Or would you say, you know what, if I'm going to go, I'm in Jersey, right? You might survive because I'm 30 miles from New York City, right? So if one of those drops, then I'm gone. You won't see me again. You might survive it. You're a little elevated, Bethlehem, PA. You may see the flash, but I know I'm going. So
you don't hear any alarms going off?
I'd be like, that's it. I'd be like, huddle with the fam or whatever. We may even go outside. I set up some lawn chairs or whatever. I'll be like this or whatever, and I might be out. I don't know. You know what I mean? But I'm just saying, but would you want to if someone gave you a choice, gave you a bomb shelter, loaded everything, you got 6 months or even a year in there, are you taking that? Or if it's gonna come off, then I'd rather go. What would you rather do? And certainly for the chat, if that question, because again, we in the 80s we got that question all the time. So what would you do? Would you want to be one of the survivors or try to survive after that? Or if you know, especially if you're near a major city, would you say like, you know what, just take me out and I'm gone?
That's a hard question, to be honest with you, bro.
Well, because I mean, we have to consider that if we're talking about World War III, which again, I think nuclear weapons, whether they're used or not, they're certainly on the table. You have to consider that possibility. Now, Coach is saying, I've always wanted to survive ever since I was a kid. You got my man more toward one. He's had under a desk to survive. Yeah, I'm like you. I don't agree. I don't see how that would have helped us anyway. But again,
I told you that at the beginning of the show. I didn't think that would help.
All those drills we used to do. There are buildings that are still standing after the fallout, shelters in their bases. Okay, even then, would you want to come out? Would you want to be part of that? Looking at all those dead bodies around you, the stench of it all. Again, the nuclear. Would you want to deal with the nuclear winter? And that, you know, that situation, what's going to happen? No sunlight for a few years, and just the death and destruction that's around you and whatnot.
It's funny you mentioned this because they actually made a game out of Fallout. Literally, the game is called Fallout. But they made a show on Amazon. They called Fallout. It's based off the game into it. And some of it, I know it's a lot of it's far fetched. You know what I'm saying? Like the technology and all this stuff, because the technology was based from the 60s, right? New 60s to the Cold War started, right? 60s, 70s.
Well, no, 50s really. Literally, it happened right after World War II. So 45, 46. Again, you had Korean War started in 49.
That year. So. All right. So the technology is based off the year. So you see, they're living on the ground. They have literally this whole city built out, and some of them are never seen the real sun, never seen the real fresh air. Excuse me. So when the first time going out there, I'm like, oh, this is how it is up here. And it's still doomsday out there. Like people are killing each other for water, for food. And those people who are living on the ground, they're like, this is the life. Yeah. So that's why it was kind of like, you never know what can happen. Like they still have survivor shelters built into this day with MREs and all this shit in there, just in case for worst case scenario. People
okay, but first of all, who's gonna have access to that? Only like I said, the influential people, the world leaders and whatnot. They, like I said, they got protocols in place. They already got these plots probably set up in the mountain somewhere. They're good. I'm saying you and I, we're common people. We're not in those lanes. Would you want to? Or if you had, like, you know, in fact, I'm gonna look it up now. See, is someone selling bomb shelters today? I'm just curious.
I'm actually looking at. I'm right out there. I'm looking at it right now. I'm looking at the prices right now. Give me a second to find it. They're actually,
you got this one now. Atlas Survival. Let me just share let me share my screen real quick. Yeah, I think they're selling them. It looks like. Let me see if I can get this to share screen and share tab. Yep. So this is, so Atlas Survival. So they're selling bomb shelters. So again, they're putting them underground. It says, look, a beautiful, safe cellar. So again, they got floor plans already made out to you. Again, underground, luxury bunkers, right?
Hey, at least you go now with bang. You're comfortable.
Yeah. I mean, somebody might get this. You know how expensive houses are, like $1 million now. So someone might want to get this instead. Like I said, overpressure blast valves for flushing toilets. So they already got this going on. So you can call these guys up, and they got companies,
bro. That's not the only one. That's the only one of a few. I'm not sure how many came for you. I got one. Hang on. 2, 3, 4. 4 of the first 5, 6, 7, 8.
There you go. 20. Hang on. Yeah. This one here, precast concrete bomb shelter, $25,000. Just to break down what it looks like. So I guess they have tiers. They got levels. I guess they got levels to this. if in fact that happens. But again,
I think it's kind of funny they have TV in there still. You
but hang on. But again, I mean, I'm thinking if you're going to get one of these, you better get one of these now, because think about. I mean, these missiles take what, 6 minutes to get here, right? So I mean, you're not even going to have a whole lot of time. Even if those horns go off, how much time are you going to have to even entertain that? So I'm just saying, but again, there's obviously they're a business, and people believe in them, and they're bombing. Now, coach says that Japan recovered quickly without all that. Look, they lost a bunch of people though. They lost millions of people. Right? I mean, Hiroshima and Nagasaki, yes, they've recovered. But if you're talking about a global, and again, the bombs that were used then were firecrackers compared to what's used now, the strength. We used fission bombs then. Now you got fusion ones, right? Thermonuclear ones now, hundreds of times the amplitude in use now. And again, if it gets to a point where if you get a few thousand of those launched, you're talking about the atmosphere literally changing. No sunlight for years, no vegetation for years. Japan wasn't that bad. And we put the money in to help rebuild Japan. So again, I hear what you're saying about, I mean, they've been devastated. Europe was devastated from the wars. Germany was devastated. But again, the Marshall Plan, the hundreds of millions or billions of dollars that we put in to rebuild these nations cannot be denied. But if you're talking about a major conflict where you can talk in anywhere to 9 to 10 figure debts, where's the money going to come from? Because a lot of the infrastructure is going to be gone. At least with Japan, a lot of that infrastructure, we brought that infrastructure to Japan through the Marshall Plan. But if you do this, where's the infrastructure going to come from in order to rebuild these places? So again, you're talking about a scale. You can't just base it on one country. If you're talking about, the major world powers and economic systems as we know them, I don't know if there's there is going to be room for that. And yes, again, those shelters, they definitely said they grew by 200% after 9/11 and whatnot. But again, we talking about if the big one happens and you got a lot of those things, again, I don't see what the recovery is. Just how do you even clean up the casualties of tens of millions of people in one shot? I don't know. Fallout takes place in a post-apocalyptic Los Angeles. I believe there's a series that takes place sometime 50 years
he's right,
because the technology is all analog. Yeah.
He's 100% about that. Like I said, I was using that as an example when I mentioned it.
Oh, you talk about that TV show?
Yeah. I was using it as an example.
Mm.
Yeah, I got it.
Let's see here. We got no one was underground. True, but still, I mean, again, the deaths, and then the people. We talk about the people who died from it, but again, people were dying later on because of the radiation. That was, again, the place was uninhabitable for years at a time.
For how many years was it uninhabitable?
What's that?
How many years was it uninhabitable?
Shelf life. Actually, that's a good question. Let me do a quick Google search on that.
And after, let me follow up another question with that. Was it a man way to clean up the mess, or was it all natural over time?
This says the making of safe city for rebuilding of habitations by the 1950s. So you're talking at least 7 years before they could even start thinking about, Japan rebuilt Hiroshima in 6 years. So again, the rebuilding started in the 50s. It took 6 years to rebuild, and obviously they've obviously kept building onto it. Started building them there as well. So so again, about these doomsday survivors again. But I'm asking the question of folks. I mean, Coach is hanging in there. Coach ain't playing. Coach is going to be like, he's going to be out there in a few. He's going to build his new house and whatnot. So Coach is there, but I'm still asking you. I don't think he gave me a straight answer yet. You want to be like John Connor and Sarah Connor? You want to survive and have the resistance, whatnot, or you just rather be like Sarah, just in that burn sequence in Terminator 2, where you just at the fence and everything and just turn into a skeleton? What would you rather be?
That's a good question. I think nobody is ready to answer that question.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's a question you don't know how to answer. Do you want to survive? Then you have survivor's regret, or you're dust, and you only know the difference.
Yeah. See, I mean, Coach, like I said, I don't know if I can agree. Man would never have faced anything like this. You talking about something that is the only thing that would come near to this, should it happen, is the extinction of the dinosaurs. When that meteor hit and wiped out the dinosaurs, you're talking about that kind of level of event. Billions are gone. And so, yeah, could man survive? I mean, certainly, again, we would go all the way back to I guess our agrarian culture and society. I mean, first of all, the land is going to be irradiated. I think 50 years. I think it's like the half life or whatever to grow vegetation on. Are you going to have enough food stockpiled that amount of time before you can start planting stuff, or how would you even find areas that are suitable for planting crops or whatnot? Is the sun going to be out? Will the clouds would have cleared so you can actually see that?
And you know what I found interesting right now, to be honest with you, I just looked it up, is I all the nuclear warheads we have, we only have dropped 2 in the history that we have, build them. We have so many built over the years, but we only use 2, for a conflict. Little Boy and Fat Man.
Right.
And both were the bombs that dropped on Japan. So
and just a correction. Again, more toward one. You're correct. It was actually called the reverse course. The Marshall Plan was specifically for Europe, right? But it was called, the U.S. occupation. It was called reverse course, which that was like, part of the plan to rebuild it. Although they do cite a source, a key U.S. aid program crucial to economic support Japan's infrastructure. The Marshall Plan was part of that, though. From what I'm just breaking down the plan, some of those resources from the Marshall Plan did go to Japan for its rebuilding. But I just wanted to kind of clear that up for going. But go ahead.
So over the years that we have, these nuclear warheads, we only dropped 2. I'm not talking about the United States. I'm thinking mankind all over the world. 2 have been dropped only. Now it makes you think, well, if we drop another one at some point, how bad would it be? Because these are like freaking,
like I said, those bombs, they were a firecracker.
The double A batteries versus
20, it was the 20,000 they were doing kilotons. I think little boy was like 20 kilotons, and I think I think little boy was like 15 kilotons. I think Fat Man was like 20, 25, 30 kilotons or whatever. We're talking megatons now.
Yeah,
1,000 times what those.
And the difference now, and then these are atomic. We're talking about nuclear. They're 2 different levels too.
Yeah, fusion versus which uses fission. So you basically use a fission starter to start a fusion reaction, which has a lot more yield. And so those parts of there. Again, both Coach and Moore talked about that certain areas today that are still preoccupied. So Chernobyl. There's still areas around Chernobyl in Russia that are still unoccupied because of the radiation that's there. So that'll give you an idea. And that was from a nuclear reactor, bless you. That was from a nuclear reactor leak. So the buildings are still there. I mean, they're just abandoned, but they're still upright. But you talk about with a bomb, you're talking about wiping out, leveling places that you're going to have to try to go in, clear all that rubble out. Where the machine's going to come from, where the trucks, unless you're going to go back in the day and just get every man takes a brick and, takes it somewhere or whatever.
Also, you have to consider you have to wait till the radiation wears off. That takes what, 7-10 years, you said?
Mm-hmm.
So you have to wait 10 years before you go in there and clear out the debris and rebuild. And then you have to wait even longer after that. So you're talking a minimum of 20 years to get back in.
But you also had, resources from other countries going in there and doing that work.
Yeah.
It wasn't just the Japanese that did that. Again, if it happened to us, who's going to bail us out?
Nobody.
Do we have, unless we got somewhere, some underground where we have tens of thousands of bulldozers and machines and whatnot, computer technology that's on the ready. So if that happens, we can just kind of go and start rebuilding. Unless they, and that might be a contingency that they have. Again, seeds for plants, for vegetation. I'm sure that there's because I remember watching. I don't know if you ever watched Mad Max Fury Road. Did you see that?
Yeah,
one?
a long time ago.
Yeah, but that was interesting because again, the most precious resource that they had in that movie were these seeds. These, so they can like plant. Because again, that was a post-apocalyptic world, but they were moving to a place where they can actually have vegetation. So it was like the most precious resource. Wasn't even gasoline, which you saw in Mad Max 1 and 2. Gasoline was like the main resource, but in that movie, seeds were the most precious resource because they at least that gave them a future that they can kind of grow some stuff in that time. Now again, but even if you have seeds, there'll be no, where the animals at, because I don't think lives, because that's the one thing you cannot, you might be able to, are they going to have like, I don't know, like Noah's Ark or something? They're going to have these animals 2 by 2 in some underground facility and they're going to come out and repopulate the earth. I don't know. Just let them run wild and just let them hopefully. But again, what are they going to eat? You know what I mean? So again, that, and again, Earth's ecosystems, right? You need insects, you need, herbivores, carnivores. You got to have that kind of balance because one thing eats another. Insects pollinate plants and those sort of things. So you're talking about something that, again, I'm not saying it's impossible, but it'll be very difficult to come from or to come up from. Again, it would take possibly thousands of years for man to really get up to stuff. And it's interesting also, the question, since you dodged this one, I would also ask, are we even prepared? Like, do we even have survival skills, like to live off the land? You know what I'm saying?
No, we don't.
To plant our own vegetables or whatnot, to raise livestock, basic engineering skills. Can you even start a fire without lighter fluid
or lighter?
Yeah, can you do the stick thing and start a fire up or
I don't know. I never done it, so I always say no. Have you?
Yeah. No, I was never a Boy Scout, but
I got matches. Call me crazy, bro, because when I buy cigarettes, and for anybody or for me or whatever, or cigars, I always ask for lighters. And people telling me, why do you collect matches? Why do you collect matches? Which, as a fan, I have something to trade with because you're going to need fire. You can trade that match for a bottle of water or whatever. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I have literally like 3 or 4 shoeboxes of matches in my closet.
Right.
You can call me crazy, but
just don't get wet. But more makes the point. Yeah, we had two. There was several. If Japan didn't surrender, we had 7 targets already lined up. I mean, so we were willing to go in. We only dropped 2 because they surrendered, but we already had other ones in the process that we were going to use in that time. Coach, again, still hopeful the Earth will replenish itself. Yeah, it probably will. If it could survive that new, so the meteor that hit the Earth has probably still had a greater yield than all of the current bombs that we have now. I'm not saying the Earth can't rebound. I'm just saying it's going to look very different. So just like the dinosaurs aren't here, we don't have any dinosaurs today, except if you want to, unless you want to say birds. Say birds are technically dinosaurs. Okay, if you want to say them, right? But in general, they're not here. What about us? Because we weren't around. I don't even think we were even primates at the time that happened. So depending on your, whether you believe the Earth is 10,000 years old or you believe that the Earth is billions of years old, all I'm saying is we weren't around. So if something like that did happen, it'd be a first for us. And I don't know if the dinosaurs weren't prepared for it, I don't know if how prepared that we would be for it.
You gotta give a little more credit. I think we're a little bit smarter than the dinosaurs.
I'm just saying,
the
majority of us aren't. And yeah, we're gonna need some really smart people, and we're gonna need some people who are willing to work and just deal with the chaos. Like, how are you gonna rally and motivate people who, when you see nothing but death and destruction around you, to mobilize people? Who are the leaders gonna be? Are we going to trust? Because I got to tell you something. The one thing I am seeing in this world, and certainly in this country, it does seem like there's a lot of anti-science out there now, right? In that time, we're talking about needing really smart people who know science, biology, physics, agronomy. We need some really smart people, but you're seeing now in this country, a lot of people, it's like anti-science.
Oh, absolutely.
They don't believe in anything, or there's some conspiracy theory with everything. So again, so there's almost a distrust of science that I'm saying, at least in this, I don't know about other portions of the world, but it seems like in this country, it's almost like we're going backwards in terms of if science says something, then go the other way, So again, are even the scientists, are they even going to get any respect in that time from the masses who don't really know anything, but, they may look at the scientists and say, well, look, it's your fault because you guys invented those weapons. So why should we listen to you? So again, it would be certainly a daunting, it would be a daunting task if that came off. Yeah. Yeah, the earth will take care of itself. I just don't know if humans will be around, at least not in the numbers that's needed. Again, and you got to have kids. So again, I mean, we forget going back to earlier times where infant mortality rates was a real thing. That's why you had dozen kids. My dad had, comes from 13 kids. You had a lot of kids because you almost expected that you're going to lose a few. Are people going to be of that mindset? We've had shows where we talk about the drop in populations, right? From these advanced societies and whatnot. Are you going to be in a mindset we're going to have a ton of babies? I will go from living in a house with a mortgage to living on land and growing my own food. Coach is determined. That's all I got. Shout out to Coach. If you never served in the military or the Boy Scouts, you're screwed. Yeah.
If you want to move to PA, I know a bunch of land up here, like 10, 20 acres you can have for very cheap.
Mm-hmm.
The same.
He said, I'm going to survive with all my World War II knowledge. Shout out to him. But I don't know if you guys still take the question. We all know what Coach is going to do, but more, what are you doing? Antoine, what are you doing? You are you sticking it out, or you just want to go? And mind you, where you live, we in Jersey, right? So again, if something happens, you know where one of those bombs is going. Probably the first bomb is going to hit in New York City. So what are you doing?
Not it's going to hit New York City. Answer. Remember the last attack that ever happened on this country? It was 9/11, and they attacked in New York first. So New York is going to get hit first. So I'll be honest with you, Paul. I can see you going outside your yard, all you guys holding hand and praying together. And that's
I may get some lawn chairs. I may get some just for laughs, I might get like sunscreen 100 or something like that. And just as a joke, we rub each other with sunscreen. And we put our goggles on or whatever, and we land on lawn chairs and whatnot. And we just wait for the thing just to, just kind of go.
Or you can have your first and last drink that day. Mm-hmm. Like, here's my first beer in life. Start drinking it.
Maybe, yeah, that might. Yeah, I may take my first drink. I'm a lifetime teetotaler, so yeah, I may take my first drink at that particular time. But it's interesting this point that Coach makes, says science is an educated guess. I wouldn't classify it that way. I mean, certainly I think science is well researched and studied. We apply principles to it. If it didn't work, we couldn't build anything off of it. A lot of people say, oh, well, it's just a theory. But a theory in science is not the same thing as a theory in the common world. These theories work as long as, unless something happens that changes these physical laws, these common laws, like the theory of gravity. Unless something there's a shift there, gravity works. And so we've been able to understand it, and we've been able to go to the moon and back because we have that understanding. So I wouldn't say it's not just an educated guess, it's the best conclusion that we can come to based on the research that was done. But I wouldn't just say it like people just throwing stuff out there like, we don't know what's going on. But science has that's the thing, science has the right and the ability to evolve. Unlike people, right? I mean, sometimes we'll still hold on to stuff, even though something's been disproven. We'll still hold on to it just because we don't want to admit that we were wrong. Science gets it wrong all the time, but the idea is science is supposed to advance things forward. But again, I think people's views and opinions towards science now seems to be like, well, we just don't want to believe anything the scientists tell us. And you know, I'm not, you know, I don't think I'm there yet.
When we're talking about theories versus science, it's two different things. Like theories, for example, a Big Bang is a theory because nobody was knowing if that happened or not because it's so many million years ago. That's a theory. Now, if you're talking about scientific knowledge, like for example, diet, a good example, you know, you need X ones meat protein to burn fat or build muscle. We know that's a fact now.
Well, that's just like anything else. Science and diet changes all the time. It used to be fat.
As an example.
It used to be fat was the devil. Now fat is good. Then they said carbs was good for you. Now carbs are bad. I mean, food science changes just like all science because, again, you're talking about populations around the world, different metabolisms, and different conclusions that people come to. Again, science will always change. Again, you do your research, and you come up with the best conclusions based on what the research is giving you, and then you put it out in the field and you try it out. And if it continues to work, then you keep using it until something else happens. So again, science will always is about going forward, at least the way I've always treated it. So I don't have a problem with science changing. I'm not saying science is 100%, but in my view, it's still the best thing going. I mean, the fact that we've been able to build these nuclear weapons to begin with proves that some of the science works because we know that these things work, and it's not like sometimes you get a lighter and you buy a lighter at the store and sometimes the lighter doesn't work or whatever. No, if we launch these things, it's not like going to be half of them is not going to work. You know, in fact, the president just called for a retesting of all our nuclear arsenal. He wants to make sure everything works, right? So you know, so I think that I think science.
Nobody has tested them in years.
Yeah, and he wants to make sure that they're good. But I'm just saying, but just the basics of how you even split an atom, the science has to be good enough for you to do that. In fact, it's interesting because when they did the first fission test, they did it. I forget the university that they did it at. They did it under the stadium of a university. There was an actual fear that the chain reaction that was going to go could literally incinerate the planet. It didn't happen, obviously, but again, that was some of the worries because again, this was new stuff. But the science, though, the nuclear physics was good enough, though they can do it. And like I said, they were able to make even bigger, more powerful bombs. The initial bombs were fission. The next ones using fusion. They nailed it and created, you know, obviously the most destructive weapons that are out there. So you know, so certainly. So I think, you know, science certainly does a lot and certainly has a lot of value to our world. We couldn't have this show if it wasn't for science. So they got something right. They got something right for us to even be talking about this subject with the audience that we have. But so water is wet is a scientific theory. Yeah. So far it works. I'll take it unless they come up with something else. I'll take it. Says when it comes to the earth, there's evolution. It's all a guess, and some made up what people believe is a narrative. Okay, all right, but you know, but again, we certainly know that you definitely going to be again one of those G's, you know, still holding it down in the nuclear fallout. Me, I think I'd take my ticket out. I think my spiritual life is clear, and I'm at peace with everything, whatever. So if I go tomorrow, I'm good. So yeah, I think I would take the option just to check out and just I'd see the flash and boom, you know, I'm out of here. I think I wouldn't want to I don't think I'd want to you know, survive in a world, you know, like that. And you know, but you still haven't given me an answer yet.
Which answer you want? I think I asked you
well,
3
the
times
one
already.
again. Are you staying or are you going? What are you doing?
Oh, I'm saying fuck that shit.
You're staying.
I'm fucking staying. I'll be me and Coach gonna be fighting our shit. He's gonna have his little AK. I'll have the AR because you know.
Right.
Like
so when you buying your bomb shelter then?
You know, you owe me a birthday present still, so I owe my.
No, I ain't buying. No, I told you I'm gone. What do I need to know?
No, you said for me, not for you. I said for me to survive, not for you to survive. You can fuck yourself.
Yeah, I'm gone. Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm saying, but you know, But if I don't want to, why would I buy you a bomb? So you want me to buy you a bomb shelter?
Of course.
Even though I'm not sticking around, but that'll be my
Absolutely.
that'll be my parting gift to you. I'm building you a bomb shelter. So
Yes.
I'll go to I'll go to that website and I'll put in a pre-order. I don't even have in fact, I'm just thinking to myself, I don't even have burial plots yet. I probably need to start researching that soon. Like my wife and I, we don't have plots. I probably should. I remember our Payne talked about last year that him and his wife, I think, bought burial plots. I probably need to have that convo with my wife and say, yeah, we probably need to start thinking about getting, because it's only especially in New Jersey, it's only going to get more expensive with those things. So I should probably start looking into to burial plots at that time. And then again, but if I get incinerated, then I won't need one. So I'm still contemplating.
If I'm not mistaken, the people who got hit the first wave of them, they got freaking dusted, weren't they?
Yeah, incinerate. I mean, like you saw like their shadows, right? It wasn't like you didn't even see body parts. You saw like shadow, like a person was here, right? That's all you saw. So that was like within the first, like if you were in the blast wave, which was about, it wasn't even a mile.
Yeah.
Was the fireball radius. All that was that. And then everything else was like blast effects and all that kind of stuff that kind of came later was there. But again, I think I remember seeing a comparison diagram of I think it was like Fat Man versus a thermonuclear bomb, and I think it was like over New York City, and it was like, what would it look like?
New York won't be around anymore. The whole state will be wiped out.
Let me see if I can show this. I think someone. I remember reading a book one time. The guy was talking about. Yeah, let me just share this real quick if I can. Yeah, let me share this. And share screen and yeah, so this was from Newsweek. So this kind of gives you a comparison. So the inner circle on this guy, let me blow this up a little bit. Yeah, so that inner circle, that was Hiroshima, right? And then the newer ones, they kind of go out from there. So yeah, so if something hit New York, Jersey City, I don't know where Anton, I don't know where you live, but Jersey City, upper, New York or whatever, you're not getting out of there. You know what I mean? so this this is the destruction of a 360 kiloton nuclear bomb dropped in New York City. Here's another one. Said the plume effect extending all the way to New England. So yeah, I mean, you're talking about some major carnage. In fact, I think there was a YouTube video also that I think did a little. That I think we could probably safely play that. I just want to let me see if I can get that up and we can talk about that. Can I get rid of this guy? Remove from stage. But I think there was a all right, you can keep talking, people, while I try to find this thing. I just want to.
No, I think if a nuke drop now with how it is, it's going to wipe the whole New York State literally off the map. It won't be even in New York State anymore after that. That's my personal opinion, of course.
Mm-hmm.
Again, I have no scientific pracs or anything like that. I think it's literally going to wipe New York out of the map, and then a portion of New Jersey. You're definitely done because you're like a neighbor to New York State.
30 miles.
How long did it take you to get to New York? An hour, right?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, you're done. So you don't even need a bomb shelter because you're not going to survive that blast.
Mm-hmm. Here's one that I got. Let me share this one. This is a nuclear explosion over London, just to kind of give you an idea. Hope I can share this one. Share. Nope. Stop screen, share screen, and okay, here's one. All right.
A nuclear weapon explodes over London. In this documentary, we explore the devastating consequences of this catastrophe. In the simulation, we will use a warhead with a yield of 750 kilotons. That's a pretty powerful charge. Some US and Russian ballistic missiles are capable of carrying up to 10 charges in a single missile. Upon detonation, a fireball as hot as the sun rapidly expands, reaching a radius of 950 meters. Anything trapped inside this fireball is instantly vaporized. In our simulation, the epicenter of the explosion is at Westminster. People within that radius won't even feel anything because the nerve impulse transmission speed is slower. Within 5 kilometers of the epicenter, the blast radius. City of London, Camden Town, Kensington, Brixton. These areas will receive the most destruction. Buildings will be destroyed and debris will fill the streets, creating extremely dangerous conditions for everyone in the vicinity. Given the population density in central London, the initial death toll could exceed 250,000 people and around 600,000 injured. Within a radius of 10 kilometers, the radiation will cause third-degree burns. Within that radius, anything that can burn will catch fire. Gas stations, automobiles, power substations, gas infrastructure. Explosive facilities will explode and amplify the effect of the devastation over a huge area, including areas from Camden to Greenwich and Islington to Wandsworth. According to various estimates, a further 450,000 people will die from burns, debris injuries, or radiation sickness, and over 1 million will be traumatized. Many of these injuries could prove fatal over the next days and weeks. Radiation sickness in particular will take lives days and weeks later. In time, about 100,000 more will be added to the death toll. Within an 18-kilometer radius of the blast, the shock wave will be enough to shatter windows, causing additional casualties to people who come to the windows when they see the nuclear blast. The shock wave will reach Hounslow, Edgware, and Enfield. Depending on the wind, the fallout could spread well beyond the immediate blast zone, potentially affecting areas up to 5 to 10 kilometers away, causing damage even in regions such as Essex or Surrey. The estimated casualties in the event of a 750 kiloton nuclear bomb exploding in London would be about 850,000 people dead and about 2 million injured. If the explosion were to occur on the ground rather than in the air, the fallout map would be greatly expanded, and the radioactive fallout could even reach Manchester, infecting people, land, and animals. The problem with a nuclear explosion in London is also that London is essentially not designed to survive such a disaster. 11 of London's 20 major hospitals would be within the blast. The remaining hospitals would be physically unable to cope with the number of victims. Many people are still alive under the rubble of the buildings, suffering burns, but no one will be able to help them. Since the creation of nuclear weapons less than 100 years ago, there have been more than 20 incidents where a nuclear-armed country was one step away from a nuclear catastrophe. You can easily find these statistics on Wikipedia. I will attach a link to this article in the description of the video. I want to call everyone to action. Nuclear weapons are a real threat to our future. Give this video a like and share it so that as many people as possible can learn about its consequences. Together, we can make a difference in the world and prevent a nuclear catastrophe.
All right, so yeah. I mean,
nobody's prepared for any of this shit to go down.
Yeah,
you should go.
Like I said, I mean, you're gonna reach you're gonna reach a point where again they're not, you're not gonna have the infrastructure. I mean, you saw the drain on resources during the pandemic. You saw it during 9/11. And you talk about a few thousand people. I mean, where are you going to get the hospitals, the ambulances? I mean, you can't get to everybody. Like, if your infrastructure is going to be taken out, your hospital is going to be taken out. So again, people are just going to be left there to die. I mean, so again, I would rather be in the center of that fireball. It'll be like going to like the New Year's Eve ball drop or whatever. Just put me right in the center of it or whatever, and I'm good. But to deal with that, imagine being in a building under some rubble or whatever, and nobody can get to you because no ambulance is coming, nothing's coming to you. What are you going to do in that situation? Like I said, I think I would rather just, listen, take the easy way route. I may even take probably the family. We may even take if we know it's coming, we may even take a subway train to New York City, and so we can be part of the action.
You're probably the only person running that way. Everybody's gonna be running the other way.
As that the actual industry, but like I said, I'm not trying to be a part of. Yeah, so Antoine, you're in Essex County. Yeah, man, you're closer than I am. You're just a path train away from New York City. A path will get you there in 10 minutes. So yeah, you're gonna be it's a wrap for the north. It's a wrap for the Northeast, and yes, so we're going towards the inner center for relief because again, they said I won't feel nothing. The sun, it'll be so intense, my body won't even feel it. That's how intense it is.
Terminator, like that scene when the nuke dropped and you see her shaking the fan, and literally you see it depends where you at. Some of the dust, like you said, some of them you see the skin ripping off and the bones and all that stuff. You're not gonna feel it. It's gonna be so fast and like yeah. Oh,
and again, and that's just to Moore's point. It's just one. Russia's got 5,200 of those things. So again, who's to say that's the only bomb that's dropped in that area? You're only going to take out a city, but if you want to take out the nation. So, and back in the day, we used to have like ridiculous numbers. I think Russia's might have had like 20,000. We had 15,000. So again, that we had a lot of arms treaties and whatnot. SALT 1, SALT 2 to reduce the number of weapons overall. But yeah, I mean it's and again we're getting towards the end of the show here, so we might want to start start making our final thoughts. But certainly I want to appreciate you guys being part of this conversation tonight. Antoine, as always, certainly appreciate your talking us more toward one. Certainly appreciate you being part of this conversation tonight. And again, for the veteran who was also earlier in the chat here, really appreciate you being part of the conversation. Again, thank you for your service, certainly to our nation, and the coaches always appreciate your perspective in these matters. And if there is going to be a last man standing, I'm picking you to be the last man standing overall. Doing this sort of thing. But yeah, I mean, World War III. I mean, like I said earlier, it's not a world war unless the big guys get into it. So if Britain, France get into it with Russia, now you're talking, world war. Because again, by default, we have to go into it because that's our treaty. Our NATO treaty mandates if Russia attacks one of our NATO allies, we got to go in there. And so once that happens, then yeah, all bets are off. If the BRICS alliance is as strong as they're saying it is, then China's going to back Russia, and then they're going to be into it. So yeah, so that's really the scenario that we're talking about. And even though these armies in and of themselves, like I said, if you took nuclear weapons off the table, you're still talking about, again, if World War II had 75 to 80 million deaths, certainly we have weapons, non-nuclear weapons that can do even more damage to people. And we have biological weapons now and chemical weapons now that we didn't have back in the day. So you're still talking about debt tolls that I don't know if the society is capable of handling at one time. And ultimately, resources are going to go out, economies are going to fall, and I just don't see how people recover from that when the big boys are out. Now, again, another option, if you want to find a little island somewhere in the central, some Pacific island somewhere, now that's an option, right? If I got time, and me and the missus, we want to find a spot in the middle of nowhere on some island that has plenty of fish and pineapples and whatnot. We can live out the rest of our natural lives in that condition. That's also an alternative. But if I only got a few minutes, like maybe less than an hour to get out, then I think I'm going towards the epicenter and I'll I'm checking out. But yeah, that is really how it comes this. But again, God willing, we hope that again cooler heads prevail and we don't get there. I mean, there's a lot of conflicts going on in the world. There's a lot of sensitivity in the world right now, and again, leadership that's out there. Again, anything that's said wrong, any wrong move that happens. I mean, some of these wars happen just because of one occasion, like World War I think a guy got assassinated. I think Archduke Ferdinand from, and I forget
I'm not sure why World War started, to be honest with you.
What's that?
I'm not sure why World War I started.
There was an assassination. Archduke Ferdinand, I forget the country that he was from, was assassinated, and that kind of popped that off. I think World War II, I think, was more calculated. I mean, obviously with the Nazis came into power in 1933, and just over the year they just started to build this machine. They invaded Poland in 1939. So that was almost like a strategic, like, we're going to do this and we're building up the power in order to do this and mobilize. But I think the World War I, it was almost like a firecracker event that had it going on. So Papua, so Moors have some places. New Zealand, Papua New Guinea. I don't know about New Zealand though. New Zealand's kind of modern. I think anywhere there's like modern, any kind of modernism, I think is going to be on the map. So Sydney, Australia, New Zealand. I think any place where there's democracies or any place where there's technology or whatever, I think all those guys are at play. You know what I mean?
I'm going to Greece and go
again. I would go to, so I would go to, like I said, just a remote place that doesn't have a lot of stuff going on, and I would just live off the like Coach kind of live off the land that way. If I could get there in time, that may be the move that I may want to Sario,
I'm gonna go to Greece and I'm gonna move to the mountains, up the highest mountain I can, Mount Olympus. And I would chill there for a few years. I'm good. I got all the research up there and everything I need. Good luck trying to find my ass up there.
Yeah. Oh, that's you could try the mountains if you wanted to do that. Yeah, Archduke Ferdinand, he was of I believe he was of Austria, and his assassination that kind of kicked off World War I. But
and into World War II, if you were to think about it.
Yeah. Oh, that's where he was deleted in Fiji. Yeah, that would be a better option than New Zealand. I don't want to go anywhere where where they got like modern cities. If they got the internet in that place, I mean, I want to go there as an option. But we're at the end of the show, guys. Again, this was certainly an interesting discussion, and like I said, it definitely brought up memories of conversations as a child that I had when it came to what would you do in that situation? Would you want to live through it or not? And so again, but these are things that unfortunately, even 40 plus years later, some of these conversations seem more relevant as we thought. Maybe in the late 80s, early 90s, Boris Yeltsin, and you thought there'd be more peaceful place in the world, but again, tensions are rising across the board. And wars are still, breaking out. Like I said, Africa, tribal wars, Middle East, what's happening with Russia, Ukraine. So there's still a lot of heavy things going on. And but one thing for sure is that certainly I think we all need to kind of reflect on, what do we want to be? What do we want to do as a nation? And when we see acts that might be going on that that may not be in our best interest to take these aggressive actions. Those are things that we may need to address in the future. And as we also said at the beginning of the show, again, me and Peter, we're just having conversations. This whole channel, this gray area, is about talking about sometimes complex subjects, where again there is no right or wrong answer, which is why we call it the gray area. And we appreciate people having different views on it. This is a conversation show. It's not a mass education show, although I do try to share information when I think it's appropriate, but we're having a combo. So again, if you guys want to see us host a panel with experts who can talk on these subjects in terms of war and whatnot, if those are kind of shows you want to see in the future, we can certainly work on those. But again, we've tried certain individuals, they say, yeah, they're down for it, but when the rubber meets the road, because of sometimes security reasons or whatever, sometimes guys, kind of bail on the last minute. So we'd like to, have the channel foster conversation. I like hearing and watching conversations with smart people. And, but again, at the same time, it's got to be the right balance, making sure you have people who are knowledgeable in their own lanes so that we can have a healthy conversation and not have one person just dominate that conversation. But Pete, certainly any final thoughts on your end?
Yeah, first of all, yeah, I agree with Paul. This show is not called gray area because I have all the gray hairs and he doesn't. They call it gray area because we disagree more than agree sometimes, but we still respect each other and love the shit out of each other. Even he's jealous of my beard and hair, so that's a whole different conversation for a different topic. But we disagree a lot, but it's not a talk show. It's a show that me and him give our opinions and stuff. Like we do have an open panel once a week, once a month. So I believe our open show is next week, right? Is it?
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah.
So if you guys have the beef and the heat, bring it up. Bring it up.
Absolutely.
I keep saying to you guys, if you got the heat, bring it. I like it. I like to hear it because you guys talk a lot of shit now, but when the time comes, you're quiet like little duckies. Now about the World War III thing, I'm still of an opinion if we may be in it or we're going into it, but this war is going to be different. Prepare yourselves for the worst case scenario whenever it happens. Because remember, when World War III started, when World War II started, they didn't pick up the phone and go to the newspaper like, yo, put in the papers, World War II started. It was never like that. I think they announced it years later that was World War III, right, Paul?
World War III?
No, I mean World War II. Or when they
well, I don't think it was called like no one branded it. Like nobody was saying, "Oh, we're in World War II." I think that was historians kind of came up with that title later on. But certainly, I mean, when we got hit in Pearl Harbor and whatnot, yeah, news spread fast. I mean, the president called a joint session of Congress, declared war, all that kind of stuff. So I mean, people knew when it popped off on our end. I don't think people were necessarily paying attention to what was happening in Europe or whatnot because again, a lot of that stuff didn't necessarily affect us. But again, when we got affected, that's you kind of poked the bear, and that's what kind of got the bear, into the war. But that's a lot of times that's what happens. You don't care about something until it does come on your door. But the thing since then, though, my biggest concerns is again the things that we're doing that may lead to action down the road, and so certainly we have, too much history where again interventionism has not given us the results that we wanted, and we really have to contemplate the long-term consequences of the actions that we take. And so those are things that we have to keep in mind. But yeah, so I want to close this out, but again I want to thank you guys for coming in. Make sure you hit the like button certainly before you leave the show tonight, both here and hop over to Sparta HQ Network. Make sure you show some love there as well. And Pete, once again, happy birthday, happy 40th birthday. And again, just hoping that you have many more years and that we can continue to do this and have this dialogue together. So really appreciate you. But that is for myself, Mr. Bennett. He is.
This is Sparta!
The Ghost of Sparta, a.k.a. Peter, a.k.a. Patiotis. This is the gray area. You guys enjoy the rest of your week. Take care. God bless. And we will see you next time.